The words you say matter. The words you say to yourself, the words that you say to other people, the words that go left unsaid, the energy beneath the words. We're going to be diving all into today on actually a keynote that I'm getting ready to do. So I'm super excited. And as I was prepping for this keynote coming up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to hop on and record an episode and share a little taste of what we're talking about in this keynote that I have coming up. So this is something that I work with, one-on-one coaching clients with a lot, that I'm working with leaders and organizations and teams around this whole thing around communication. And communication is such a big kahuna of a topic. And so whenever someone comes to me and says that they want to either get better at communicating themselves or they want their team to get better at communicating, we really need to break down, what does that mean? Does that mean presenting skills and speaking to a group of people? Is it getting influence and getting buy-in on your ideas? Is it communicating your ideas one-on-one to somebody, to like a leader or a strategic partner? Is it giving coaching and feedback to team members? Like, there's so many different things. And this is something that I've been helping people with for years. My degrees in communication and interpersonal communication. And so it's like, how do we convey information in a way that we come off confident and strong and influential and that people can receive? And so this is something that I have been fascinated with for so long. And I've given a talk on speaking with confidence and presence and influence. And those are some of the workshops and talks that I give. And I'm really excited about this keynote, where we're really honing in on how do you speak to lead? How do you communicate in a way that builds trust and that builds influence? And really trying to look at it from like, what are the stepping stones? What are the breadcrumbs that you can follow to see the people who have success in this, regardless of where you're using it? So you might be a leader in an organization who's trying to build more trust with your team and influence of your ideas to get buy-in. You might be a small business owner or an entrepreneur who is trying to get buy-in for your business, who's trying to get clients, who's trying to turn prospects into clients. You might be someone who is just trying to get more confident in how you convey your message. And so as I was looking at all of these different things, I went, how do I bring all of that together to give you a framework, to give you a process to help? And that's what I do in this talk. And so as I'm getting ready to deliver this talk in a few weeks, I wanted to share a little bit of the things that are coming up for me as I'm prepping for this and give you some tips, regardless of where you are. If you're someone who wants to really be seen more as a leader in your space, how communication and being intentional with your communication is really key. And so when we're talking about this, one of the things that just kept coming up for me was like, words matter. I feel like I say this all the time to people when we're talking about how we convey a message, is words matter so much. The words that you use with yourself, the words that you use with other people, like I said at the beginning, the words that maybe go left unsaid, and the energy that's beneath what it is that you're saying. And so if we look at all these areas, the first area of the words that you say to yourself, I talk about this all the time on the podcast. If you've been around, there are so many episodes around mindset and how do you get over that kind of imposter syndrome and confidence. All of those are really bundled into this idea of what is it that you are saying to yourself. And so often I see leaders and organizations and teams, they miss this part so much because we focus so much on the strategy. What should I say? How should I say it? Yes, all of that's really important, but the first foundation, like the root of all of it, is usually, what are you saying to yourself? And so if you are somebody who's listening, who's trying to get better at communicating ideas, to get more sales, to get more business, to get more buy-in, to get your leaders or your teams to rally around an idea, the first thing you need to do is you need to stop, you need to hold up a mirror, and you need to look at yourself and say, how am I talking to myself? Because let me just tell you that a lot of the times when I'm coaching leaders and I kind of get that more intimate space of one-on-one where I get to kind of get in their heads a little bit and what it is that they're thinking and saying, the things that they are saying to themselves, things that you are saying to yourself, you would never say to someone else. You would never say that to a team member if you were trying to motivate them or if you were trying to empower them. And so why are we leading ourselves that way? Because The name of the podcast is It Starts With You because it starts with self-leadership. And so if we want to be better communicators, to build influence and to build trust with other people, it has to start with us. We have to be the ones setting the example. And so what are the things, I want you to just start to really notice, what are the things that you say to yourself throughout the day? Is it things like, oh, I can't believe I messed up. I hope I don't screw up in that. I can't believe I said that. What if I say this? Oh, that was so stupid, Julie. How could you have, said that? Because if those are the things you're saying, then you're already going in with this negative, like beating yourself up type of mentality, and you're not going to be as effective in communicating from that place. So that's the first thing, is you need to start to really think about, what are the words that I am saying to myself throughout the day? And as I was doing some research on this topic, I found the statistic that I think it was around I have to look at the exact stat that I have here. I think it was around 80% of our thoughts that we have are repetitive or are negative. Oh yeah, this is what it is. I quick pulled it up here. So the average person has between 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Hello, at least the 60,000 thoughts per day person over here. But up to 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. Let me say this again. Up to 80% of those thoughts we have throughout the day are negative, and up to 95% are repetitive. So if most of them are negative and then you're also being repetitive, you have got this wheel going throughout the day that is repeatedly just beating yourself down. The first thing you need to do is you need to look at the words that you're saying to yourself throughout the day. What are those thoughts that are happening? And you need to start pausing, becoming more aware of them, and asking yourself, is this getting me closer to my goal? Fill in the blank what that goal is. Or is it getting me farther away from it? Is it helping me or is it hindering me? And you need to start to set up a cue for yourself of, what do I need to think instead? What do I want to say to myself instead? We talk about this on the podcast all the time. And here's your reminder, if you've never listened to an episode before, your thoughts create your feelings, which creates your actions, which creates your results. If you're starting with a negative thought about yourself going into the situation, most likely the domino effect you're setting up is not taking you for the success that you want. So the first thing you need is you need to look at yourself and what words are you saying to yourself? The second thing then is the words that we say to other people matter. Go figure, right? The words that you use with other people are so important. And this can come with practice. This is something that, really starting to think about how intentional are you. And when I say intentional, I mean planning before you go into the thing, right? We forget how much just practice can really be helpful. So you being more planful before you're going into a conversation with a prospect, before you're going into a conversation for a business deal, before you're going into a conversation where you're giving feedback to someone, or you're presenting to the board, or you're presenting to your team. In any of those situations, being more intentional means thinking ahead. Who's going to be in that room? What level of detail is it that they really need from me? What's important to them? What is the information that they need? How do I need to check myself? Where might things go wrong? Where might they have pushback? Where might there be somebody there who's got a negative attitude? And what am I going to do? So it's being more intentional going into those conversations, and it will get more natural and it will get more comfortable. But this is where I see a lot of people really struggle, is thinking through those things ahead of time and having scenarios. Okay, if this happens, this is how I'm going to handle it. If they have a question I can't answer, this is what I'm going to do. Even having some notes for yourself that you can jot down, planning what you're going to say. Things like, oh, that's such a great question. I want to make sure that I get you accurate information. I want to make sure I get you the right answer. I want to make sure I have some time to process that. So let me get back to you at the end of the day or tomorrow, whatever it is you need to say, right? So really being more intentional about the words that you are using. And here I want you to really think about, you have so much power in the words that you use. Think of a time when somebody said something to you, and I use this in one of my trainings, one of my leadership trainings, is think of a time when somebody said something to you that just made you feel so powerful. They said it and you were like, wow, I can do anything. And then on the flip side, think of a time when someone made you feel powerless. They said something to you that just like knocked you down, hit you at your knees. You know, if you have any little kids or something and they come up and like hit you in the back of the knees and your knees kind of go down, right? They said something that just made you feel powerless. And now I want you to ask yourself, what type of a leader am I being? How are my words? And when I say leader too, man, you can use this with friends, with family. I use it with my kiddo all the time to think about the words that we use with our kids, with our friends, with our family, with our employees, whatever it might be. It is so powerful. And are you the person who is making people feel powerful or powerless with your words? So the second thing is really starting to be more intentional before you go into meetings, before you go into conversations about not only what do you want to say, but plan what you're going to do if things don't go exactly the way that you want them to. And really thinking about putting more intention into the actual words you're saying. Like, wow, if I say that word, how is that going to make them feel? Like, is that a word? I always use the example of like, are you helping to break down the wall that they might have up, or are you building the wall? Meaning, by the things that you're saying to them, are you putting up their defense wall, or are you helping to lower that defense wall? And really starting to think about, like, if somebody said that to me, how would I be feeling? The other thing that I always talk about, and it's really important too in this conversation, is what's not being said. Or sometimes I say, like, what's being left unsaid? Because this is where I see so many breakdowns in communication, where I see sales get lost, where I see teams not get on board, where I see confrontation and conflict and issues, is because there's so many things that are being left unsaid. Either you're being stubborn and you don't want to bring it up. See that a lot in personal relationships. You don't think you need to because you're like, well, why would I need to say that? I know that. And you're forgetting to think of the other person that you're talking to. And you might just be harnessing all of this like frustration or anger. Like, why haven't they done that yet? Or why haven't they checked in on that? Why didn't they ask me? But your job as the leader, in whatever sense that is to be the one to go first and to say the thing, to call it out. Maybe they're like, yeah, I already know that, or whatever it might be. But why leave that up for chance? And so I really talk a lot about like what hasn't been said. Where is there misunderstanding? Where is there unresolved conflict? Where is there ambiguity that we need to maybe be clear on expectations, on intention, on feelings, because there's things that are left unsaid. And so that's the other thing I would say too, is like, maybe if you're in a situation right now, it's like, maybe what have I not said that I need to say? And then one of the last things is just like the energy around what's underneath the words. And I talk about this a lot. This is where energy leadership and the assessment that I use with leaders and with teams and the process that I take people through is so powerful, because we don't think about the energy underneath our words. We weren't taught to do that. We were taught to change our words. We weren't taught to get to the root. And so right now, I'm just going to say, if this is something they're like, oh my goodness, yes, like there's something else going on underneath, like pause this, go down to the show notes. Let's set up a time. Check out energy leadership. We'll put a link in there too for you to look a little bit into energy leadership. And you can set up a time, because this is transformational. And I don't say that lightly. I need to, as we're going through this website update and things, I need to put even more of what our clients say about energy leadership, because it is the number one thing that when people really go through it, they take the assessment, they learn the framework, they learn the process on how to shift their energy. They say it is the biggest thing that transformed their business, their career, their relationships, their results. They're like, it's the energy piece changes everything. I just had a client last week who has been putting this into practice, and she's like, the energy leadership thing has changed everything for me, because the energy behind your words, behind those thoughts, it really does change it all, because it gives you a process for going in to be more intentional about thinking about your own energy and how are you showing up, thinking about the energy of others, and how do you need to change your own energy, meaning how you're showing up in those conversations. And that can change way more of the results, even just the words than you use. You don't have to have the people get so, I don't have the perfect way to say it. It's not always about having the perfect way to say it. It's having the intention behind what you're saying. Having the right energy is being in a space to be curious, to see opportunities, to tap into empathy, to look for creative and innovative ideas, versus being in a space where you're in this tunnel vision of anger or frustration or one-sidedness. Like that changes everything. And so again, my invitation to you is to let's have a conversation about that. But in the meantime, really start to tune more into like, how often are you going into a situation assuming what someone's going to say? Oh, they did that last time, so I'm sure when I give them this feedback, they're going to do that again. Or I'm probably not going to get that sale. Or every time I go present that idea to that team or to my team or to the board, they're really negative. Like, okay, maybe. And also though, you have set that is what you're looking for. You're looking for opportunities that validate your own opinion of what's going to happen. And you're much less open and curious to figure out like, why might they be feeling that way? What am I doing? How are they experiencing me that's causing them to do that? And when you start to shift that energy, everything else, people start to notice that. I always say it's like you kind of become magnetic then for people, because it's like, wow, they just have this way about showing up. There's this thing about them. And so I'm super excited to bring this to even more teams, to more events. And hopefully this was helpful for you. If you're somebody who's trying to, get better at storytelling for information or communication or presenting, or just having stronger relationships with people, having more trust and building more influence, these are the things that really matter. And so hopefully this was helpful. If you are somebody who is looking to dive more into this, definitely let's set up a time. Or of course, if you have an event coming up or things like that, where you want this message brought to your event, to your audiences, let's connect. Super excited to bring this to multiple different types of audiences. And I just really want you to remember that your words matter. And again, I know I talked about, like, obviously when I bring this to events, we're talking a lot of the times from a workplace perspective or leadership, but I always bring personal into it too, because this is the ripple effect, like the words that you use with yourself, the words that you use with team, but also friends and family. And I mean, in our household, like just the words that I use with my son and the words that he uses with himself. I give an example oftentimes when I'm teaching or speaking on this, of my son when he was in baseball a couple years ago, and he was getting really frustrated with himself because every time he went up to bat, he was missing it. And so you could just see the frustration, and he would start to get up to bat, and he would be, when he was getting ready to go up there, he'd be like, oh, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it again, right? Well, we know, what does that do? So I talked to him, I was like, buddy, if you keep saying to yourself you're going to miss it, you most likely are going to keep missing it. And so I asked him, like, what else could you say to yourself instead? And he's like, he kind of struggled with it. He was a couple years younger than me. He's 9 right now. So this was maybe like 2 years or so ago. And he was like, I'm going to get up there and I'm just going to say, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit it. And the next time he went up to bat, and he said, I'm going to hit it. And he hit it. Now, did he hit it every single time? No, but he had much higher chance of hitting it, because your body, everything hears the words that you're saying to yourself. And so our job too is, if you're a parent or a mentor, or if you have anybody who looks up to you, our job too is to teach our kids this, and to teach others who don't know this, of the words that you say. And the words that you say to other people hurt, right? That's something we learn when we're a kid. And although I think as adults, we tend to forget this sometimes, right? We tend to forget this. People say some pretty terrible things sometimes. But also, again, the words that you say to yourself really matter, because if you're beating yourself up all the time and the words you're using with yourself are terrible, you're much more likely to do that to other people. Maybe not as intense. We tend to be much harder on ourselves, but you're in this space of kind of picking yourself apart and critiquing yourself. And if you're coming from that place, you might be doing that to other people as well, right? So I really want you to think about this. And again, even, especially if you're someone who's in charge of, closing business, closing sales, closing deals, building relationships with people for professional things, this is a skill set. I mean, that's why there's so many trainings out there on sales and all of those things, because this is a skill set that is going to help you in so many areas of your life. So today, I want you to just really remember that the words you use matter. They matter to you. They matter to others. The words that you're not saying matter. The energy matters behind that. And you have the ability to shift those things and drastically shift the results that you're getting. So try these tips out. Of course, let me know what thing is really standing out for you. What thing have you tried, or any questions that you have? I'm always open to that. Share this out for anyone that would be helpful. And remember that it starts with you.